I'm Maria Menounos, and you're tuned in to AfterBuzz TV, the ESPN of TV talk. Now, let the buzz begin.
Hey everybody, it's Lauren Kling. Welcome to another episode of the World on Fire After Show. This is for Season 1, Episode 6. I am joined, as always, by the lover of period pieces, Tori Weaver. How are you?
Yes, super excited to talk about this episode. I always say I'm excited, but honestly, each episode always gives us new, exciting things to discuss. So definitely want to dive into everything that happened and hear your thoughts on everything.
Yeah, between this and I feel like on lockdown, I'm watching a lot of period piece type shows. Outlander. Between Outlander and this show, I think I've got my fill of Europe, at least for
Yeah,
now.
for sure. And we have even more coming. Like you said, I think quarantine has brought us so many period pieces, even if, they're dramatized like Hollywood or things like that. We're getting so many period pieces and I'm just loving every minute of it.
Yes, it's good. So on this episode, we're going to talk about Harry and Lois, and basically
Mm-hmm.
she was telling him, I want nothing to do with you. I won't even tell the kid that you're alive. Robina feels like she's the victim of her son Harry sending everyone in. We've got Tom trying to escape as a prisoner of war in Paris. We have
Mm-hmm.
Albert getting picked up by the police along with Herr Rossler and his wife Claudia. And then, oh my God, that ending. We'll talk about that. We see Kaja just for a split moment, long enough for her to cry over, picture. But let's start with the
Mm-hmm.
fall of Paris. Not a
Yeah.
single gunshot fired.
Yeah, it was, I feel like we're always like, we knew it was going to happen, but it's still weird, like seeing it on the TV. And Tom was not having it. He was like, you guys didn't do anything. Like, you didn't even try. You didn't put up any type of fight. And I think it just kind of connects to, I think in the first episode, when we're first introduced to what Paris is like and how everybody's just kind of going about their day as normal. And so a part of me just kind of felt like they weren't going to put up a fight because they weren't prepared. Honestly, it just kind of seemed like they felt like this is not our fight. We're not going to do anything. We're throwing our hands up. And that's exactly what they did. So even though it kind of sucks and you wonder like, oh, what would have happened if like roles reversed and history played out a little bit differently? It was just kind of like, it is what it is.
It is what it is. I know. Sadly, it is. So I'm going to talk about later on news some extra insight. So if anybody is curious and wants to learn more about not only the show in general, but about each episode and go further in depth and as to what's happening in time with that specific episode, I'm going to share that. So that's a little tease. So we've got, Tom in the hospital who's being spirited away by Dr. Webster, who's trying to sneak him out as a prisoner of war, and he's able to do that, pass him off. Also, Webster is dealing with trying to protect Albert.
Mm-hmm.
And boy, so sad that we do find that Albert's taken out. We think because he's been playing jazz the incorrect way. There's nothing like watching a romance, a love story between two people, and then one of them being torn away. How did you feel?
I mean, it was sad to see, but I was expecting it. Like I knew from the beginning that they were going to find a way to arrest Albert, put him in danger, any type of thing. I mean, first in the series alone, we see that, and not only in the series, but because the both of us love history, we know the crazy things and the crazy rules that were set in place for people to live according to Hitler. So I knew there was going to be an issue. I mean, I just felt like Paris was living too carefree. They were doing things their own way. And I was like, honey, this is not going to end well. And so that was definitely this. But I mean, Albert has always said, like, I'm Black. So no matter what happens or what side you think you're on, like, I'm always going to be in danger. And I think the doctor kind of started to see that, especially when he went to go ask the guard or whoever was, working the front desk of the jail. And the guy was just kind of like, why are you so concerned? And I think, unfortunately, I don't know if this is kind of foreshadowing, but the minute that he went to the desk or the little makeshift table, I was like, this is going to cause even more problems because Albert told you not to say anything, and this is exactly why. Like, you saw that the security guard was kind of asking questions, and when the doctor walked away, he started looking at the card more, and I was like, this is not going to end well. Albert told you to mind your business.
Yeah, and speaking of mind your business, we have here Rossler, who was trying to mind his own business but didn't have his story down. And so, you know, as we remember, there was the woman in the factory who was also part of the same Nazi party group as he was, disappears. He doesn't really have a correct answer, and so he's eventually picked up, him along with his wife Claudia, who's returned with Hilde back home. And boy, scary thought again. But this is what happened: is if you speak out, you will be picked up, and you may never see your family again.
Yeah, this was definitely, and Lauren, please chime in with your thoughts. This was one of those things. I mean, with period pieces, you know what's going to happen. And with most period pieces, they're not that pleasant. And so, even though you know how times were, or you could, you know, from history, because of course we weren't there, but you know how things were playing out. It was definitely one of those things that kind of made me want to like turn my eye and not watch all the way, like something that just didn't sit right in my stomach or my spirit, honestly. And I was kind of like, of course, we've seen it, we've read about it, we know about it, but every time I see certain things, it's kind of like, like I tense up. And this whole plot that carried out with this family definitely made me so tense from beginning to end. And I think, Lauren, we've talked about it on the show, just kind of knowing the danger that they're in and knowing the spy that's their neighbor. Like, we kind of knew that the danger was following them no matter what happened. And that danger definitely increased after he killed the worker. I was like, this is going to be bad. And the minute that they came to question him and he just didn't have his story together, I was like, you're done for. I mean, she was a member of the party, so we knew that they were going to take special interest in her death, or I don't know if they know for sure that she's dead, but they know that she's missing. And I just feel like he kind of should have prepared just a little bit. I mean, we know the times that we're in, and I think he could have sat with Nancy and kind of been like, okay, what, like, when the time comes and we have to say something, what are we going to say? Because the minute he slipped up, it was instant. Like, they knew something was up.
Yeah. And, you know, it makes me think about, you know, between the two Americans on the show, Webster and Nancy, they're very outspoken. And, you know, we know as far as in the real world, Americans are outspoken. Even now during quarantine, there are some Americans that are very outspoken. So, putting aside whether that's good or bad, we kind of get to see the results of how that happens. You know, not in this episode, but Nancy has reported on things she really believes in that's kind of gotten her in trouble. Webster kind of speaking out in some way, as far as what you had talked about, him trying to save Albert. Do you think speaking out is good, or do you think if you don't speak out, that's your best chance of staying alive?
I mean, it's always like, when you talk about life or death situations, it's always hard to figure out what's like, it's hard to have a moral compass because you're still trying to fight for your life. But I do think that there is a great level of privilege that the two of them have, because they are both blonde hair, blue eyed people. And so not only are you American, so this, everybody kind of looks at you that you're not a chess piece yet because we haven't, you know, gotten that far in the war yet. Everybody's already just kind of like writing you off as American, but then you also pass as someone who's acceptable or whatever. So it's kind of like they do have this privilege to speak out. But even though they do, I mean, Hitler is I don't know, like, he doesn't take well to anybody contradicting him or anything like that. So even though they are, I guess, in the good graces when it comes to their appearance and where they're from, I do think speaking out has caused more issues than good. I mean, Nancy has brought in a lot of attention. I mean, not just by herself, because the family did it on their own, but she's brought a lot of attention to her neighbors. The doctor is probably going to bring a lot of attention to Albert. He's going to bring a lot of attention to the hospital if he continues to sneak people out. So I think, like you said, it's hard because you want to do what's right, but at the same time, sometimes doing what's right causes more death than just staying to yourself or just doing something that doesn't require that. So I don't know. Every episode, I'm kind of like, okay, I'm glad you said something. Then I'm just kind of like, ooh, shut up.
Right.
So
Now,
I don't know.
also on the other side, we have Webster and Harry both trying to protect somebody else. So Harry,
Hmm.
helps his I could pronounce it before, Singalese, so,
Senegalese. Hmm.
Senegalese friend who he knew in the war helped him to get out. We see this with Webster helping to get out. Oh my gosh, what did you think, by the way, of the nurse? I forgot her name. The nurse kissing Webster.
I was like, "Oh, girl, he's gay." This is going like it's not, and I felt
Yeah.
so bad because I knew she was gonna like, kind of read his body language and sense that something was wrong, but she didn't know, so it was kind of like, "Oh, like I don't want her to think it's anything wrong with her, but like, he's involved romantically with another man. Like, that's just it's nothing against you. Like, it's really nothing." I just wanted to like jump in the TV and be like, "Girl, like it's not your fault. It was just, da 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 da." But I,
I think he hit it pretty well. Um, as far as hiding the fact that he's with a gay man. I'm sure it's almost funny in a way. I could imagine a video of seeing the reaction of gay men being kissed by a woman. You
mhm.
know, I think he was pretty calm about it.
Yeah,
I think he knew the situation. Um, but yeah, that was kind of a shock. I was like, oh, okay,
yeah.
I got that. So I do want to talk about. Let's see. I know there was a couple more. So Claudia, that was at the very end. Claudia's released after having to
Mhm,
stand on the table in the interrogation room and basically toe the party line. And then she arrives home, and we see her with her bags packed as if they're waiting for dad to come home so they could leave. And then Herr Rossler finds her on the floor. And
mhm.
I was like, oh my God, I did not expect Hilda to be found as well. Did you?
I didn't, and like I said, there's just another one. Like I feel like I don't know. I'm not a crier, but I feel like it's down in my stomach. Like if I was a crier, it would definitely be there. Um, it was so heartbreaking to watch. Like you say, the interrogation process was already gruesome. It was already, and of course, we both know that's not as worse as it could get, but still, it was something. It was embarrassing. It was humiliating, and it was done intentionally. And so it was terrible to watch, and you kind of clenched your jaw because you were kind of like, is this all that's going to happen? Like, are they going to make her do even more? You just never knew when it was going to end. And then when it did, you were like, okay, I knew that some sort of compromise. I knew they weren't just going to kind of like let her off the hook. Like I knew it wasn't going to end there. So when she said that everything was fine now, I was like, everything's not fine. Like they're either going to try to run away and escape, or they had to come to some sort of agreement, or maybe they're going to have to give up their daughter. Like I wasn't really sure, but I knew that there was another step that had to be done because there was no way they were just all walking out of this interrogation just free without anything. I mean, they had a whole file of things that she had just said in the grocery store, just making a comment about milk, So I
Hmm.
knew that just wasn't it. But seeing them, it was just like, gee, and tell me your thoughts, Lauren, because I honestly wasn't sure if this was intentional on the wife's behalf, like if she did this as some sort of like, this
Mm.
is, I don't want to be in this environment anymore. I'd rather, end my life with my daughter rather than something even worse happening to us? Or did you think that they were kind of set up as if they were allowed to go home, but they were poisoned in the sense? Like I wasn't really sure
Right.
who caused it. Of course, it was sad, and I was caught up in the, oh my goodness, these characters are no longer with us. But I wasn't really sure who was behind this. What were your thoughts on that scene?
You know what? I did not even think of the idea that they could have been set up. I
Hmm.
truly have a feeling that Claudia wanted to protect her daughter, who knew that she would never be free, because the interrogator knew everything, not only everything about Hilda and her
Hmm.
medical condition, but even made Claudia repeat the line that the doctor, the Nazi doctors, were right in saying that basically they needed to get rid of anyone who was not able-bodied. who had issues. So I think she kind of did not see a way out to protect her daughter with her husband getting picked up. She didn't see a way of him being able to protect them, unfortunately. So yeah, I think that's exactly what happened. She was protecting her daughter.
Yeah, it was heartbreaking, honestly. It was
Yeah.
just kind of it was tough to watch. I'm not gonna lie, that was probably one of the tougher scenes from this series that we've had to sit through.
Yeah. So with that ends the penultimate episode for season 1. We've got one more episode. We're just about, like they said, we're just about 1 year into the war with the fall of Paris. So the last episode is going to wrap up some of these stories. We would assume. I guess I'm moving into predictions. So why don't I hold off on that? Let's go into one of my favorite features, is special segments.
Yes. I'm sorry, I was muted, but yes, I get super excited about this. I love like learning more things. But our special segment for anyone who's watching us for the first time, or our unsung heroes, where we just kind of highlight people who have helped in any type of war that we don't really know about. So today's unsung hero is Milton Olive III, and he actually served in the Vietnam War. Excuse me, my mouth is a little dry, but he actually presented himself as the human sacrifice in order to save 4 other U.S. soldiers. And he placed himself on top of a grenade and sacrificed his own self so that it didn't harm anyone else around him. And he honestly, he didn't get a badge of honor until later, but his act of selflessness was talked about and honored and uplifted and celebrated throughout the military and throughout the war. So I thought that was really cool. Nice little thing, because sometimes we don't really realize how many sacrifices people have to make when they're put in these situations. And that was the ultimate one, because he sacrificed himself. And I thought that was really, I don't want to say cool or nice, but it was nice to learn.
Yeah, selfless. Yeah, definitely. So thank you very much. As far as news, you sometimes don't even really think about going back to the source for news, but I want to go to PBS.org. Not only can you find out more information about these shows, you've got episode recaps, but they also have, for every episode, in-depth history and images, which is really cool. So if you want to learn more about what was happening in World War II at that time, and insight into why the writers focused on specific things, that's something else. For example, for season 6, their special section was how did Paris fall to Germany without the firing of a single shot? Learn about the occupation of Paris and the rise of the Gestapo and the Nazi policy on jazz. So, oftentimes these storylines are based on real facts. In interviewing writers and show producers on different shows, AfterBuzz shows, it's always based on something that the writers have learned in research or something based on their life, which I find fascinating. They also have podcast series for some of their shows, including interviews with some of the people involved in World on Fire. There's one episode with the show creator, Peter Bowker. So a whole bunch of information that relates to more in depth about World on Fire. So check it out at pbs.org.
That's really cool, because you can definitely see like the detail that they paid attention to. Like they pulled all these things out of history and highlighted all of it, instead of just like pulling a main event. Was like, we're just going to focus on something that everybody already knows. So that's really cool.
Right. All right. With that being said, let's move on to our final segment, predictions.
Yes. Oh.
And now, your AfterBuzz
This
TV
show is just kind of like
predictions.
what is happening. I definitely didn't expect the people who passed in this episode to pass, but then again, like I kind of did, because there was just so much going around that. I'm trying to think of like what could possibly happen, because this show always is something. But I feel like I do definitely think, we kind of see that Harry is becoming a spy or something of the sorts, and his storyline is actually close to one of our other unsung heroes, which was, I believe her name was Eileen Nern, which kind of did something similar. And I think he's kind of like arranging equipment drop-offs or something like that. And I know that was what she did back in France. So that I thought that was pretty cool, because we had kind of like touched on that. So I definitely think that he's going to do that. He's going to end up seeing, I always say he's going to end up seeing Kasha, but like he doesn't. But I'm hoping this time he does, because I feel like they have to meet again.
Well, you
And I
know
think
that he's
something's
being
gonna
sent.
happen with that.
You know that he's being sent back to Poland. Of course,
I'm just
he's got
hoping that, like,
yeah.
I'm hoping she doesn't do something crazy and like decide to leave the minute that he comes to Poland. So I was like, you need to stay put and just stay there so you guys can have this talk. And honestly, I get a little sad because I was honestly rooting for Lois and Harry, but it kind of seems like that ship has sailed. But I definitely think that him returning to Kasha isn't going to be smooth sailing. Like I kind of feel like that relationship isn't going to work for whatever reason. Like I don't know. Like there's no way they're just going to meet back up and just like everything is fine. Like you have a child, but it's okay. Like I don't think it's going to go over like that. And I also think that his mom is going to be in a compromising situation to where she has to like kind of pick between maybe protecting her son or like handing over information that can possibly harm him. Like I definitely think she's going to have to choose, because from the series we kind of see that she doesn't really feel like it has anything to do with her. She has her own views that aren't in agreement with anyone around her, honestly. And I think it's going to be a moment where she has to like choose to actually be a mother or be loyal to whatever party and ideas that she has been loyal to this time. So kind of loose predictions, but I'm hoping that's what we're going to see in the next episode.
Yeah, I could definitely see Kaja and Harry meeting back up, but Kaja is not, well, both of them are not the same people they were when they met each other. So I think while I agree that it may not go smooth, I feel like that might be the reason why is they're two different people. So, he's going back in to work. I'm trying to, let me rephrase that. I know that she is very adamant about protecting Poland and fighting for the Polish underground. Harry, to me, a little bit more difficult for me to know what he wants. That's the thing that I'm not sure is, what does he really want? He wasn't, he definitely didn't know if he wanted Lois. And so that'll be interesting. I'm concerned for Herr Rossler and what's going to happen with him, because now that he's lost his wife and his daughter, he could either turn angry and work for the underground, or he could, you know what? I don't know. I don't know if because we don't know in jail if he was interrogated, if he could then become somebody big in the party because he's got nothing left.
Right.
The fact that he lives next door to Nancy really makes me wonder what's going to happen. And then Dr. Webster, or, Webster and Albert, I hope that they get reunited, but there's no specific reason why that will happen. But I think if we're setting ourselves up for the fiction part of the show about the relationships between these characters, I think Albert and Webster will reunite with each other. What they do next, we'll have to see. So
everybody needs to just get out, just leave.
Yeah, get out. True. So we've got one more episode left for next week of the season. It'll be really interesting. Tori, where can people find you on the socials?
Yes, you guys can find me on Instagram at Toxic Model, or on Twitter at Tori with 2 E's. And of course, me and Lauren on other panels. So click around the YouTube and you'll find us talking about something.
Yes. Tori, what panels are you actually on?
There have been a couple, and sometimes I can never keep up with them, but I actually just wrapped The Eddie, which is a limited series on Netflix. I do Motherland Fort Salem on Thursdays, sometimes on Fridays, depending on our special guest. I'm having a brain fart. Sutherland Till I Die, which is a Netflix series. A letter for the King. Penny Dreadful, which I do later tonight. And there's a couple of other ones, like I said, I'm forgetting. But yes, those are the ones that I am currently on.
Yeah,
yes.
Wow, you are busy. I've got one more show with Better Call Saul wrapping up a couple weeks ago, and having some withdrawals with that, and our producer Ryan would definitely agree with that. The only show right now I'm working on is What We Do in the Shadows, an FX show. So that's the other show. But I want to invite all you guys to come and watch some of our other after shows, especially if you are watching other shows on TV, either streaming, scripted, or reality. We are covering, it feels like every show, right, Tori, Almost
Yes,
every show
honestly.
we
Whatever you like, we have something there. If you're not really into watching recaps and things like that, we have articles with numerous topics. We have
yeah.
something for everyone. So definitely check it out.
Yes, and if you're a fan of WWE, of wrestling, I think AfterBuzz has 5,325 different shows related to wrestling. And so, boy, the 14-year-old kid in me is like, what? But anyway, we want to thank all you guys for watching us. Check out AfterBuzzTV.com for all of these articles, also our YouTube channel and our socials. You can find me on Instagram at Lauren Kling, LorenKling. Thank you very much. We'll see you next week.
Our founder, Kevin Undergaro, and me, Maria Menounos, would like to thank you for tuning in to AfterBuzz TV. Remember, we're not just the first, we're the biggest in the world, and we're the only destination for all your favorite TV shows. Whatever you crave, we've got it. So go to AfterBuzzTV.com and check out our lineup. Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.